Hello, everybody. So this is my review of Blight Survival, and this is going to be a game that will be coming out. I'm not sure when, but this is a game based on the 14th century, sort of like a horror survival type of game. And just a little bit of background on myself. I'm a historical military illustrator, and I'm also a historical European martial arts instructor. So I know a little bit about the medieval period and arms and armor. So I shall give you my commentary as we go along. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this men at arms here has caved in this, what looks like to be a zombie, caved in his head, and it's quite interesting. So, could you actually do that with a heater shield? Possibly, depending on the type of wood that's used on the shield and the weight of the shield itself. I believe if you had a head that's placed against the floor or the ground, and you continuously bashed in the bashed against the head, it would probably eventually cave in. Depending on the wood that's used on the shield, so that is possible. Yes. So continuing. Okay, he's going to pick up his weapon, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to pause it here because I wanted just to talk about the equipment. So it is a sort of a late 14th, very late 14th century harness of armor that this man at arms is wearing. Maybe he's a knight. He doesn't have any sort of a belt, a specific belt of the late 14th century that would sort of make him a knight, but he's wearing a coat of arms, so it's definitely possible. Maybe he's part of a retinue, but I would maybe consider him high-ranking men at arms, or even of the knightly class. So we have, his coat of arms is, in the field of divisions, it would be parti per cross, where you've got this cross and it's quartered field. By the way, I'm no specialist when it comes to describing coat of arms, so just bear with me if anybody there is a specialist in describing coat of arms. But we have top right and bottom left in argent, which is basically silver or white. We've got two passant lions, being that they are passing or walking. So passant is a French word. They're not guardant, which would mean that the head of the lion is facing towards you. It's just passant where the face of the lion is facing the left-hand side. And it wouldn't be regardant either. And regardant is when the lion is facing the right-hand side. And the color of the lions is or, so or meaning gold. And we have a gules upper left and bottom right field. So gules meaning red. When it comes to describing coats of arms, there aren't many colours really. You've got the two metals, and then you've probably got primary colours, and then black. I think purple is another one. So there aren't many, and I think green as well, of course. But there aren't many colours describing coats of arms. So I would consider this to be burgundy, but in describing coats of arms, it would be called gules. So the top left field is blank. Bottom right is charged with 3 or fleur-de-lis, and obviously you've got the top right and bottom left, which would be considered those fleur-de-lis you'd call seme de lis, which is like a pattern of gules fleur-de-lis. So again, I'm no specialist when it comes to coat of arms, and I don't actually recognise this arms in general. I do recognise a few English knights coat of arms from the 14th and 15th centuries, but it could be French, could be English. I reckon, to be honest, it's a fantasy type of coat of arms that is based on history. So there we go. That's the coat of arms. So we have a late 14th century type of harness. So we have a hound skull bassinet with an aventail of mail, which is chainmail. In historical term would actually just be mail. Chainmail is a modern term, but it's lined with this leather liner, and I haven't really seen this before in history. I don't know whether it was actually a thing. I don't think it was. However, this mail aventail, which covers like the neck and shoulders, underneath that would be padded with or lined with a type of gambeson type of material. It's more of a liner. It wouldn't be especially be that thick, but it'd be enough just to give a little bit of padding underneath that mail. So we've got the arm harness here. I do think that the lame here is especially massive. The lames are the segments of plates that go in between the main plates. So we have here rear brace, which is the upper arm. We've got the cutter with a wing, which is the elbow plate, and then we've got the van brace, which is a cannon, or van brace cannon, meaning that it's just like you'd say it's like these cylindrical plates. We've got hourglass gauntlets, very typical of the late 14th century, but I would consider these two lames up and below to be very big. But I think they do animate. It's really nice that they do. I don't think the legs animate too well, from what I saw before. But these wings here, very typical of the late 14th century. However, you do not usually see them. You can see them on the inside of the arm here. They're not really a thing. They were on the legs on the 14th century, maybe smaller wings. But if you look at some effigies, you might be able to see some wings on the inside. But as you go later into the 14th century, they become less prominent as an item. He's got a surcoat. Underneath that, he would have his cuirass, and underneath that would be a mail shirt. Underneath that would be his sort of like an arming jacket, and then maybe a shirt underneath that. So there's quite a lot of layers here of armor. He would have a leg harness, and he would probably have a mail skirt, or just the shirt that he's wearing doubles as the mail skirt. He would have mail in underneath the arm harness. However, the mail would only be covering the gaps. So he could be wearing sleeves of mail, or just gussets, which are almost like voiders, to protect the inside of the armpits and elbow areas. Okay, moving on. So, see here, just trudging along a post-apocalyptical type of medieval landscape in autumn. Obviously, judging by what is on the wall here, we've got it's almost like the Last of Us type of fungal infection that's been going on. Let's continue. Okay, we've got an enemy. That was very quick motion, or the animations here. So we've got a little fight where he dodges the initial blow. There. Some simple cuts and thrusts, nothing too special with the martial arts here. And he's only using one hand. I would use both hands. He's got a bastard or longsword. It's kind of in between both of those types of swords. Another enemy. Yeah, just stab him through the head, which is fine. Typical of zombies. Okay, so he tackled him and ran the zombie to the ground, which is fine because he's wearing full plate harness. He'd be able to be. He would be heavier, and he would obviously be fit enough to charge down this zombie. So I'll go back. Doing that is fine. There's no one else around. Although he did stab quite far into the ground, and that would get stuck. So yeah, moving on. Okay, so autumn skullcap. I would imagine that was a type of mushroom, but it's nice that you can loot people's bodies, which would be pretty good. I think that would be a nice addition to the game, especially any dead bodies and things like that. Light leather. It is uncommon. Very interesting. Okay, so what he does here, he cleans his sword using... He's using his hand or his palm of his hand, and inside the hourglass gauntlet would be some kind of leather glove. You wouldn't use that. That's you'd be covering yourself with blood, and I would personally grab some grass over there or use the cloth on the on the dead body to clean my sword. I wouldn't do that. It does seem that here, when you bend the arm, that the lames are animating, but you can see the size of that lame. It's huge. They never were that big. You'd usually have one lame above and then two below, but sometimes there were just one lame above and one below. But it does seem that the animation in the bending of the arm to get the sort of interlocking plates in motion properly, it needs a bit of work. So anyway, let's move on. I mean, the graphics is pretty good in terms of what's on the floor and all this litter and then blood. This shield here is doesn't seem to be very historical. There's no, it's not lined with anything like a canvas or a sort of a parchment or a leather, or the fact that it's got point up here. It would be nice if you could actually pick it up, because it's just laying there, and shields are actually very, very useful. So it would be useful to actually have a shield, especially if you're going to be going against bitey zombies. So you wouldn't want to get touch them, but maybe because you don't want to touch it because it's covered with this fungal mushroom stuff. And you can pick the other one over here that's just sat there. Bit of a waste of material. Anyway, moving on to the next section.
Stop warming your balls and get over here!
I do find it interesting that they use London-style Cockney accents and things like that for, you know, lower-class peasantry, soldiery, and all that kind of stuff, where they talk like that, and oh god, dearie me. That accent I believe, didn't really exist in any sort of medieval background, but it's a stereotypical thing of using for lower class peasantry and soldiery to have that kind of London accent. It's kind of funny that that's become a thing.
Hey, are you listening to me?
Sure, I am.
You're hearing me. You ain't listening.
Leave off, Granger.
Look at him, or I'll make you.
Boy, calm down, will you?
Okay, so
I am looking.
he's sneaking around. Now, it's fine when you're like crouched and you're trying to be as slow as possible, but when you jump down onto your front, getting up is going to be not impossible, but it'll take a little bit more time, and especially going down like that. All knights were physically, all knights, but most knights would be trained to be quite physically fit, and so that moving around in your harness is no issue at all, and you'd be used to it. So I don't find any issue in him running around and fighting the way he does. You would tire down quite a bit eventually. But you should be physically fit enough to at least run around for a bit. But jumping down like that, gosh,
make you.
I wouldn't do that to my own harness, getting that all wet and muddy.
Alright,
Plus the amount of noise that you would make in actually rolling around like that and crawling would be insane.
Bloody savages, didn't I say?
Now we're about to come up to another bit here. where he sneaks up behind somebody.
Get off him.
Oh, you think he's got blight?
So I just want to. I'm no botanist or a geologist here, but the environment seems to be a bit more alpine. We've got spruces, maybe these these are probably Scots pines or a type of pine tree. So you could probably place this somewhere in southern Germany, Bohemia, Sweden, lower like sort of southern Sweden and Norway, Denmark. Probably even do Scotland, or northern parts of Ireland, or some hilly or mountainous areas of France, or Spain. It's that kind of, sort of Western European, maybe Central European areas. However, the type of harness that he's wearing, I wouldn't class that as to be anywhere in Germany or Bohemia or Czechia, that kind of area, or Western Poland. This is very much Western European.
Sometimes it's harder to spot, yeah? Gets in your veins first, clogs up your brain. It's infected before
That's
you know
typical
it.
zombie stuff.
He's dead. Poor bastard reeks.
Probably
I wonder
dead
what
for
they'll
days.
call them other than zombies.
You're new to this. It only gets worse after they're dead.
Okay, so he's sneaking up to this character here. Now, I just happened, because I teach martial arts, and I was going to talk about late 14th century, as it happens, a late 14th century Italian harness, and I have a Scherberg arm segments here. So I'm just going to pick up. You're not going to be able to see this. I'll show on the screen what the Scherberg harness looks like. The typical, I can't remember the name or the number of the item, but it's quite famous among historians, and I've got a replica of the arm harness. Now, this is pretty much, essentially the same components as this arm harness here. Now, listen to this. Okay, that's just me moving the plates around. I mean, even if you did that as slowly as you can, the plates interlock each other, and you get noise. And it's just the way that the plates are. Now, if you add on mail, that's rubbing against the plate, and I've only got one arm here, you can imagine what the noise is going to be like when you've got arms, legs moving, and the chest moving. So you've got the fooled plates interlocking as well. The amount of noise that makes, and you're not going to be aware of the amount of noise that you're making. He hasn't even got his visor up, so you probably can't even see where he's walking properly, unless he just he's got decent breaths in his visor to look down. But he clearly would be making a lot of noise, and I should think, I'd recommend is that they put a penalty of noise when you come to sneaking, and the penalty is the amount of plate armor you're wearing. You shouldn't. This guy here would definitely be able to hear the guy sneaking up to him. You've also got your hourglass gauntlets, which would be clanging against. Usually hourglass gauntlets are lined on the inside here, so they probably wouldn't make as much noise, but they'd still make a bit of noise. If he's got leg plates with sabatons that are also plated, the amount of noise that makes as well, the clanging noise is going to be insane. You're just going to hear that for ages away, and this guy here should be able to hear that. So I reckon there should be a bit of a penalty, like a noise penalty, if you're sneaking. Anyway, moving on.
Keep looking.
Yeah, very nice. Using your rondel dagger, which is the type of dagger he has is called a rondel dagger, which is the guard. It's got rondels, like the sort of circle plates above and below. I'll put an image up the screen of that. Yeah, loot the body, very nice. Salt minerals. He has got no. I reckon this is like The Witcher, where you just pick up stuff and it just seems to be in a magical inventory. But I just wanted to, if we get a view of his head. Oh, Saurian Guard. Very good. It'd be also pretty cool to, visit, the guys who are alive, and you're in friendly territory, is to have smithies where you can, or armorers that can, and bladesmiths that can create, custom types of swords. That'd be cool. Different kinds of pommels, guards, grips, blade geometry, blade types, to change the type of sword to for different, maybe you want a stabby sword that's a bit more thin and more robust and very rigid, or do you want a cutty sword that's got a thinner type of blade and more of like an axe, like more of a falchion. It's quite blade thin, all the different types of swords in the medieval period, like falchions, hangers, and bastard swords, arming swords, long swords, different kinds of bludgeoning tools as well, so your maces, your poleaxes, and your warhammers, all that kind of stuff. It'd be really cool to see all that. Okay, so he's about to pick up a bow, I think. Or he's just having a look around. Ah, there it is. Okay, so he's picked up a yew longbow. Now, really, the technical term is probably more of a warbow that he's picked up, not a longbow. Well, I suppose it's a type of longbow, but a yew is usually the material that's used for creating longbows, and decent yew usually comes from Spain, and then that will be traded eventually, usually traded or taxed for entering England, for like merchants and stuff. They'd use yew to enter as a tax. To trade with England, and obviously this yew was used to make longbows. That's why you get the infamous English longbow, or warbow. Now, he's got his visor up, his visor down, sorry, and I would say that if you're going to draw a longbow and you've got a bassinet on, a hound skull with the visor, I would try and do it with the visor up. It's going to be so hard to see where you're aiming and how you are aiming. I would imagine also you would want to have your head away from your... It's going to be quite difficult, especially with the visor up or down, so it's not something I would recommend. But I would also think... Hang on, we'll wait until this zombie comes along here. Okay, so he's drawn his bow. I think... if you're going to enter any sort of combat phase and he's got his visor down, there should be some visual penalty. Maybe narrow the field of vision so it's a bit more blurry, a bit more darker, not completely black it out. So you just basically get like 2 black strips and narrow it down so you're just looking through the vision slots. I would personally have an area of focus that is nice and clear, that you can see what's going on, but above and below, maybe darken it and blur it ever so slightly, just because your mind is good at picking up your surroundings even though you can't see them, when you're moving your head, and you can pick up where certain things are, so it's not going to be completely out of mind. So I would probably darken it and blur it. That's how I'd personally do it if you're going to do a visual penalty. Obviously, here he can see perfectly all around him with his visor down, which is not something I would do. Now, it's good that he didn't actually draw the longbow for too long. I should also think there should be a penalty in drawing. So if you draw it for too long, you just let go. Like a strength penalty, how far you can draw it back and how long you can hold it there shouldn't be any more than 1 or 2 seconds. There we go. They didn't. You usually see in films where they hold the bows for. Then you get the knock, draw, and then they hold the bow for a really long time, and then they say loose. That was never a thing. You would draw the bow when you can and fire loose the arrow whenever you could. Okay. He's got a mate here. He's a bit more lightly equipped, which is fine. I didn't really talk about his sword too much. You can... I haven't got a really good shot of his sword. But it seems to be more of like a sort of in-between a bastard or a long sword. It would be cool to see him use it with two hands. That would be nice. Struggling along. You can't really hear the armour clanging against itself much though. That'd be nice, a little bit of, Foley artist type of stuff. Would be nice to see. Or hear. I want to talk about him just in a sec. We get a good view of what he's. It's quite blurry. What he's wearing. Make an offering to the goddess. I can imagine there's no Christianity here, or it's sort of like a pagan area. Right, so he's wearing red hose, which is nice. He's got typical turn shoes, and he's got a what's like an arming sword here. Gambeson. So the gambeson, it seems okay. It seems like there's separated sleeves, which wasn't really a thing. He's got a standard of mail, or actually might be a coif of mail, and he's got a kettle hat on, chef de fur, I think it's called. But it's just a called, typical terms. It's just a kettle hat or a brimmed hat. Might seem like they both got the same sword, so they're using the same model of swords. So, yeah, it does look like the sleeves have been separated. You can see a little tie there. So that was never really a thing. The sleeves should be just sewn on like normal sleeves on any item of clothing. And also, again, we have this lined coif. I don't really, out of memory off the top of my head, that being a thing at all. But on the whole, seems fine. The level of detail is nice to see, especially the focus on the late 14th century style of arms and armor. I would like to see more. A little bit of. I just wanted to talk about the fact that he's wearing his bow like that. It wouldn't especially be uncomfortable if he was. It'd be hard to actually put it on like that, because you're drawing the bow over your body like that. If you were wearing just a gambeson, that would be pressing against you quite hard. It'd be uncomfortable after a while. But he's got armor on, so with his cuirass and stuff, wouldn't be too bad. But it wasn't really a thing to wear the bow like that. You just carry it in your hand, just simple as. And maybe if you're transporting it, you would have like a type of sock or like a really long piece of waxed parchment, or not parchment, canvas material that will you can store away the bow once it's not the string hasn't been attached. But there's wasn't, as far as I remember, not really like grips on bows. Not really a thing. I might be wrong, but I wouldn't carry the bow like that. I would, if I was to do this, either have your weapon sheathed and carrying the bow in your hand, or if you've got your weapon drawn, you can't actually carry anything else and just drop the bow and then pick it back up again whilst sheathing your sword. So yeah, bit of a strange thing. I would imagine there might be like this magical inventory of items that just like you get in most games, like in Witcher or Skyrim or any other sort of that type of open based games. But yeah, it's nice to see. I shall stop rambling on. And I shall leave it there. If there's anything else you want to add in, please feel free and put in the comments below. It's nice to have a little discussion on what you guys think. Some of you probably know a little bit more than I do, or if not, then it's nice to give a bit of information on, you know, the type of harness that this Men at Arms or Knight is wearing, plus other things. So it'll be nice. It'll be great to see a bit more in the future of this game and see where the potential goes, because obviously it's not a finished game yet. But yeah, it's very promising. A lot of potential. And it's cool to have like a zombie horror survival type of theme in matched up with medieval. It's really cool to see. Obviously, it's not very unique, but there's been like movies and things like that matching up medieval and undead. A very specific movie I'm talking about there, but yeah, it's nice to see that matchup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have in store. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and I shall see you guys on the next one. Cheers, folks.